I think the American people are angry because they've seen financial institutions bring our economy to the brink of disaster, and yet they've seen some of the stewards of those institutions rewarded beyond anyone's define of logic. America is still a place where if you work hard and you're creative and you add value, compensation will flow at levels that are quite significant. But it's when you fail to do those things and yet you still get paid very well is where the American ire is raised, and it's absolutely appropriate. I think the administration, through the various regulatory agencies and through the pays are exerting the right types of pressures, both from a regulatory reform point of view and from a process point of view, but there's no substitution. All of these companies are publicly owned companies. You've got boards of directors who, unless they are of total tin ear, should be sitting there and saying, what are the appropriate levels of compensation relative to the risk allowed, relative to the returns received? And it's not all that difficult. You know, there are people who today make a great career out of beating up on one name, Goldman Sachs. Well, a year ago, Goldman Sachs was a $50 stock. It's today a $170 stock. If you were fortunate enough to buy it at 50, you think Lloyd's done a pretty good job, and you want to pay him to keep doing that. It's where performance and compensation have separated that the populace is very angry, and appropriately so.
But talk about the non-U.S. populace, and I mean here the competitive pressures from outside the United States. There are other financial centers that would like to be number one. Is this a situation where they're all rubbing their hands and thinking gleefully that this is just going to hamstring the U.S. global capital markets?
I think you touch upon a very critical point, Pimm. There are market centers around the world, financial centers, that would love to step in to the U.S. position. You know, we have been the capital of capital for the last 200 years, yet there have been capital centers in London, parts of Europe, and parts of the Asia-Pacific region that pre-existed us by hundreds of years. If we're not careful, if we find ourselves in another situation of over-regulating, or if you will, solving last year's problems, we run the risk of competitive displacement.